Nancy, come on out.
I'm going to get organized first.
Nancy is a dietitian specialist in oncology at St. Joe's, Franciscan, and has done this for quite a few years, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 31 the other, when I was
31.
counting. So, if you don't mind passing around the handouts, but don't look at them yet. Well, I want to have a little introduction. So don't start reading ahead, like the teachers say. Do you have a table or anything, like a small table or just I could just use this. Okay, well, I need to have like a place to I might need another chair, yeah. If we had 2 chairs, then I have some props.
Take one, pass it down. I'll do that, you do that for Tim.
Next door to that, or over here.
I just want everybody to be able to see, so maybe I'll put them up here and just walk around a bit. We'll have both sides displays. Does that sound okay? That's good?
Right here, okay?
Is that okay? I actually talk kind of more louder or closer to my.
I've got my hearing aids turned all the way up, I can hear you from the other end of the church, so I'm not a good sound. I can hear it.
How about you?
Exactly, well, mine was too.
Okay, because I can move it up. Okay.
Just to bring it down and go on. I mean,
You can have checks, you can.
All right. All right, well, thanks for that introduction. And I actually am a CHI employee, so I'm glad to hear that our MRI is good. Thanks for having me today. The topic that we came up with was targeted nutrition for the prostate cancer thriver. And I think that what I've heard is you guys are well-educated, highly great support group, really trying to gather as much information as possible. So my question for you is, has any of you seen a dietitian during your journey?
Nope.
1, 2. Okay. A few, not very many. It's not commonly recommended, and that's unfortunate because of the one thing that you can control in all of this is your diet and your lifestyle. And what I'm going to present today is the latest research on patients. A lot of what is out there is for cancer prevention. This is for people that already have cancer and what is the evidence for certain foods and for certain lifestyle. So, with that being said, I wanted to give you the definition of thrivership. Because we're not going to just be survivors, we're going to be thrivers. A thriver is one who progresses towards a goal despite circumstances and flourishes. Now, your prostate cancer diagnosis may have already motivated you to make some changes. Reading information, you're going to a trial to do some activity and lifestyle changes, and making mindful dietary and lifestyle decisions an important part of your life as being a thriver. I mean, you all tend to have the same goal. The goal, your primary goal is to try to either live a cancer-free or keep your cancer at bay from progressing. You know, some people do have metastatic cancer, and the guidelines are still appropriate for that, but this is really the most powerful for those with the cancer that's active surveillance, that has not progressed, or that's being managed with other symptoms. So, those are our goals. Now, the other good news is the same goals for prostate cancer survivors is the same that decreases the risk for other diseases. So, what's the leading cause of death in men?
Heart disease.
Heart disease, not prostate cancer. So the same guidelines help prevent heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. So it's good news for everybody. Now, we talked a little bit about the treatment options. They do vary widely, and it's very individualized. It's based on your staging, your PSA score, your Gleason score, your age, your general health, maybe who you're seeking for advice. So because everybody has such an individualized plan, I'm not going to be able to answer any questions about your personal situation. That's not fair to you because I don't have your medical records in front of me. But I will be happy at the end or during this talk to answer any of the nutrition questions you might have for nutrition and prostate cancer. So you can turn your handouts over now. The great news is there is actually 2 huge studies scientifically based on men over years and years of study, so longevity studies, looking at diet and lifestyle and their role in prostate cancer. The 2 leading ones, and you may have already read about this, is the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. It's called HPFS. Started in 1986 by the Harvard School of Public Health, and it's funded by the National Cancer Institute. It's looked at over 51,000 men to try to find out what is the risk factors for heart disease, for vascular disease, and for cancer. And of that is a subset of 7,500 men with prostate cancer. So some of these guidelines are coming from that longevity study. Another leader in nutrition and lifestyle and cancer is, has anyone heard of the CAPTURE study? It's the Cancer of Prostate Strategic Urological Research Endeavor, but abbreviation CAPTURE. And that was launched in 1995 from Dr. Pete Carroll, and it's not the coach, different Pete Carroll, of over 15,000 men with prostate cancer. That was at University of California, San Francisco. So one of the best references that you'll be able to find, and I have listed it on your handout, is the University of California, San Francisco. So they took all of the research and all of the guidelines and everything out there, and they put it into some criteria, some recommendations. And I'm summarizing it for you in these handouts, and we're going to go through them step by step and talk about what they found. And I'm going to use a couple terms that you may not have heard before. So is anyone here familiar with the term phytochemical? Do you know what a phytochemical is? Well, phyto is a Greek word for plant, and a chemical are those naturally occurring chemicals in foods. And I went to college 30 years ago. We didn't know any phytochemicals. It wasn't even a term. So it shows how science changes as life goes on. Now there's over 1,500 phytochemicals that have been found occurring in whole foods. And very few have really been studied in detail, but some of the ones that have been studied we will talk about today. And it may be the phytochemicals that offer protection. We know that they have a lot of roles in our body, from antioxidants to vitamins and minerals to certain nutrients that can help prevent the cancer cascade. The other thing that we're going to talk a little bit about that is in some of these foods is fiber. And more research is on the microbiome. Have you heard about the microbiome? It's like your gut bacteria. And if we don't eat fiber, our gut bacteria die, and that is part of our immune function. If we're going to keep cancer from growing, we have to let our bodies help. And in order to help, we have to feed it the right fuel. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to give a couple examples as we go through each category. So the first one you might have all heard about. Has everyone heard about lycopene? Prostate cancer and lycopene are like hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so lycopene is a phytochemical. It is a phytochemical found in tomato products. There's one really good study that recommends 2 servings of tomato sauce per week to decrease the risk of progression and associated with reduced risk of developing aggressive prostate cancer. So, canned tomatoes release more than fresh tomatoes. So I was in Italy at a cooking class, and they actually used this particular brand of tomatoes because it has a more rich flavor. They're harvested when they're really deep red, so the chef thought that this brand was a better one, and it actually did make some really good sauce. So we're going to leave this out on display. Now, who doesn't like tomatoes? My husband hates tomatoes. Don't ask me why. All the kids don't like tomatoes. So if you don't like a certain food, always look for a couple things. Is there something that also contains lycopene that I do like? So other things that contain lycopene would have some kind of a red color. So papaya, sweet red peppers, red cabbage, mangoes, even watermelon has some lycopene in it. Not as much as stewed tomatoes. Those are the highest lycopene, or tomato paste. But they do also contain lycopene. So if you don't like tomatoes, go for one of the other foods. The other thing that lycopene has been shown to do is decrease the risk of heart disease and also macular degeneration. So these foods have multiple roles in our bodies, not just prostate cancer, but specifically the recommendation is to include cooked tomatoes with a goal of 2 servings of tomato sauce a week, which would be a half a cup of tomato sauce or something. Do not take supplements. Supplements don't work the same as food. All right. And how do you make lycopene absorb better? Anybody know? Lycopene needs oil, fat to absorb. So if you mix your tomato sauce and put in a little extra virgin olive oil, you increase the absorption of those stewed tomatoes. So these are power packed together. Foods work in combination. Okay, moving on. Let's move on to the next recommendation. Cruciferous vegetables. Does anyone know what a cruciferous vegetable is besides broccoli? Broccoli.
Cauliflower.
They're the gassy vegetables. So broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, even things like bok choy is a cruciferous vegetable. Garden cress cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable. So if you don't like broccoli, you can go with other options. But men with non-metastatic prostate cancer who consumed a half a cup a day of cruciferous vegetables had a lower risk of recurrence than men that didn't eat any. And this was based on these longevity studies. Half a cup a day. So it doesn't just have to be broccoli, but think about that. That's a doable thing for a lot of folks. Now, I'm a kind of a picky eater, and I grew up on a farm, which was a good thing, but a bad thing is we ate a lot of canned vegetables because it was so far to the store in the middle of winter, and my mom boiled everything. Back then you just boil. I can't stand boiled vegetables. This would make me gag if I ate it boiled. So I didn't eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables for a long time. Then I discovered roasting. I prefer my cruciferous vegetables roasted. Does anybody roast vegetables? Does any man here do cooking? Because if you do, you get frowned. Oh, I love it, love it, love it. So if you roast cruciferous vegetables in a little olive oil and drizzle some seasonings on it, maybe some red pepper flakes, maybe a little bit of pepper, it makes them a little more palatable. Or raw. Raw vegetables are great too. One thing you can do, talk about potency. So do we know that they have phytochemicals in them? The phytochemicals that are in these are things that are long names. Sulforaphane. Sulfur, think of the smell of these gassy vegetables. That's the phytonutrient that's in it. And that can actually detox your body. It stimulates enzymes in your body that detoxify carcinogens. So, you may have one type of cancer that may not get you, but we want to avoid other types of cancers too. So we want to constantly be detoxifying our body and getting enzymes that break down the cancer cascade. The other thing it contains is something called endo-3-carbinol. And that also activates detoxifying enzymes. So again, it actually detoxifies the liver. All of the food we eat, all of the chemicals we consume accidentally, pesticides, all have to go through the liver. Our liver is a very important organ. So if we can detoxify it, that's helpful. And these kind of vegetables act to detox the liver. So good news in both ways. How do you make this more potent? If you combine cruciferous vegetables with nuts, you make it 13 times more potent. So what a great idea is to serve your broccoli with a little bit of walnuts, because you know that you're releasing even more of that powerful nutrients. So those are some combinations there. All this was bought at the grocery store. It wasn't any special place. You can get it. Yeah.
If you add butter to that, does that change anything?
No, it doesn't change anything except for to add saturated fat. And we're going to cover saturated fat in a little bit.
Some people won't eat vegetables unless they add something to it.
Yeah, so it's better for you if you eat your vegetable. And if you have to add a little butter, that's acceptable. I'd rather have you eat your vegetable. But it would be better if you used olive oil because it's an unsaturated fat. And we will go with saturated fat next.
What kind of nuts?
Any kind of nuts. I just put walnuts in there.
If you have to avoid nuts and seeds, what's a good substitute? Would nut oil, like walnut oil, be a good substitute?
Oh, like if you have a GI
Diverticulosis
problem.
or something, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, you could use walnut oil. So you wouldn't have to add the olive oil, you could cook it in the walnut oil, if you had to. Yeah, some people can't eat nuts and seeds, or if it's just a matter of avoiding them for digestive issues, you can grind up the nuts. And many
Like a
people that have
paste.
GI problems can handle ground nuts or a nut butter where they can't handle whole nuts.
Are peanuts, peas or nuts?
They are a type of a legume. They're actually not considered a nut. They're a ground legume.
So they don't fit in what you're just saying?
No, but they're still from a plant, so they're still good for you. They still work. You
Yeah, I
can
know
mix that with
but
peanuts, sure.
Does it have the 13 factor in it?
It would still work. Because it's really what's in the nuts that is in all nuts is vitamin E, magnesium, and healthy fat. So healthy fat and the other vitamins in it release it. So any nut has those properties. Or any seed for that matter. Oh gosh, you guys have good questions. Okay, let me make sure I get through everything. All right, soy. Does anybody here eat soy? This only gets a 1 star, and you're like, well, if it only gets a 1 star, does that mean that I don't need to do it? 1 star has the least amount of evidence, but there's a lot of reasons to use a little bit of soy in your diet, and I'll tell you why. It contains isoflavone. That's a complicated name. You don't have to write all these names down, just education-wise. It's a very profound phytonutrient that may inhibit prostate cancer cell growth. It has been studied in test tubes, not in humans, but it did show that in a test tube. We also know that people in Asia, Asian men who ate a high amount of tofu or edamame or soy milk had a lower risk of prostate cancer. There may have been other factors, but that was one study that showed that. We also know that it's an excellent low-fat protein source, and it also has fiber in it. Now, if you've never had soy before, start off on baby steps. So one of the baby steps is to try dry roasted edamame, dried edamame, as a snack. It's loaded in fiber, it's very low in fat, it has 8 grams of fiber, 13 grams of protein. Now that's a nutritious snack. And it tastes like, does anybody have it? It tastes like, kind of like the nut idea, but a little bit more vegetable tasting. But it's not gross. It's not like eating real tofu if you're not used to it. This you can buy, I bought this at the grocery store.
What's the last name of that, antimony?
Edamame, E-D-A-M-A-M-E. And edamame is just soybean.
The beans out of the inside of it.
It's also a gluten-free snack. Don't overdo these, don't overdo them. I mean, a little tiny bit works, but it is a very good, healthy snack option when you're on the go. Processed meats.
Question,
Oh, yeah.
over there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My urologist has me using soy milk.
We'll talk about dairy in a minute.
Okay.
Let's go to dairy.
He said it has some estrogen-like compounds in it.
Estrogen's not a problem for men with prostate cancer. Actually, you want a little estrogen because you
Yeah,
want
that's
to
what
block.
he-
You want to block the androgens, the testosterone. So it's okay to have something. These are very weakly estrogenic. We even know that women that have breast cancer that's estrogen positive can have a little soy in their diet now because it's such a better choice than saturated fat and animal proteins and all that kind of stuff. So don't go crazy on it. If you've never tried it, you don't have to eat it. But I grew up on a farm. I'm a meat potato girl. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But my first time I tried tofu, really tofu, was at Indochine, which is a Thai restaurant. And they did curried tofu, and it was delicious because you flavor the tofu. They grilled it beautifully, and then they flavor it with all the sauce and all the vegetables. And that is a potent cancer-fighting meal. And it was delicious, and I didn't have to make it. So, now I know how to make it, but at that point it was a nice way to introduce myself to it. Okay, processed meats. Processed meats, the American Cancer Society now processed meats, what are they? Ham, sausage, hot dogs, bacon, anything that's a smoked, salty meat. Even some luncheon meats, if it's not a fresh carb luncheon meat, like if it's a smoked ham or something, that's considered processed meat. The American Cancer Society has done research and now compares those processed meats to cigarette smoking for their carcinogen content. Now, does that mean I'll never eat bacon again? No, but if I'm eating it every day and I have cancer or I have a risk for other things, I'm going to start really thinking about my use of processed meats. Maybe from every day I go down to once a week, and then maybe I go down to once a month, or maybe I go to holidays. But it's educating you on the risk that it's in. Now, it only gets 1 star because it doesn't necessarily correlate to prostate cancer progression. But it's, we don't have the evidence yet. But we do know, just from a cancer standpoint, it's very carcinogenic, cancer-causing. Coffee. Not enough evidence yet to say you should drink coffee or not drink coffee. Coffee's from a plant. A little bit of coffee is okay. Recent study that showed that over 6 cups a day can be harmful to your health. And it's also what you put in your coffee. What do you put in your coffee? That's what's harmful to your health. So, I'm a coffee drinker. Black coffee, it's gold to me. But I don't do too much and I don't put anything in it. Because it's the cream and the sugar and all that stuff that contributes to our unhealth. Fish, this is a big one. Okay, we're living the best place in the world to get fish almost. So there was a large study that showed that men who ate fish twice a week, preferably cold fish, wild fish, had a 17% decreased risk of recurrence and or progression. So their cancer didn't come back, or they were able to, not have it recur. That actually gets 2 stars because we also know that fish is heart healthy. And, so if you don't eat fish at all and you don't like fish, there's other avenues. The other way you can get omega-3 fatty acids if you don't like fish is walnuts again. Those are a good source of plant omega-3s. Some people just don't like salmon, but you can get it from other things like halibut, shrimp, mackerel, sardines even. So, any seafood's good for you. They don't have as many omega-3s, but eat your oysters. I love oysters. Well, they have to be good oysters. All right, dietary fat. This was your question about butter. So, dietary fat. The health professional studies we talked about earlier said that men who replace 10% of their total daily calories from refined carbohydrates, that's the white potatoes, the white rice, and the white noodles, and with healthy vegetable fats like nuts, olive oil, and avocado had a 29% lower risk of developing lethal prostate cancer and a 26% lower risk of dying from any cause. So, big message here. Try to reduce the amount of animal fat in your diet. And animal fat is fat that comes from an animal. So if you're eating a piece of meat and it's got all that marbled white stuff in it, that's saturated fat. That's unhealthy fat. If you're eating tons of butter, is that a bird? Wow, that's so cool. He could come out. I have 3 dogs. That's amazing.
I got a cat.
I thought it was a toy to begin with. I'm like,
You should have brought it.
What's his name? Or her name?
It's in my pocket.
Raider. Raider? Wow, that's pretty cool. Animals are actually very therapeutic. So, we know that people that have animals do better. So that's a good thing.
Did I hear you say white potatoes are not good?
Refined carbohydrates are in white potatoes, white rice, white noodles, and white bread. So if it's white, it's not as good for you. And even white potatoes are not as good for you as colored potatoes. We know that foods that have more color, even if they're like white potatoes, if they have like a sweet potato or a red potato or a new potato or a yellow potato, they have more of those phytonutrients than white.
Thank you.
So. But more importantly is the white breads and the white rices and the white noodles and like tons of the white foods. They just are nutritionally void of much nutrition and they have no fiber in them. And that's the real problem.
But when we get white rice, we put soy sauce.
Yeah. Soy sauce doesn't have that much soy in it though.
Lots of salt.
They do make a little sodium.
Lots of sodium.
Yeah, pick your battles. Here's the thing with this. We all start from a different place nutritionally. Some people are really like go-getters and gung-ho and they've done all the research and they're maybe involved in a study and they're like, oh, I know all this stuff. This is all bad. And some people are just like, I never thought about it before. So start what makes sense to you. Just like your cancer pathway is your own personal pathway, your nutrition path is your own personal path. Maybe you just make one change. That's all it takes to start making the right steps in the right direction. Oh my gosh, I'm probably talking too long. Okay, poultry, 1 star, it's better than red meat. Just take the skin off, and you can cook it with the skin on. You know how you cook with the skin on and it keeps it more moist? So I cooked my chicken with the skin on, and then right before I eat it, I just take the skin off, and it gets it much juicier. And you get a little fat, but not all that saturated fat. Eggs is kind of an interesting topic. So eggs, health professional study that we talked about earlier found that men that ate over 2.5 eggs per week were nearly twice as likely to develop a more aggressive prostate cancer. These are the grocery store eggs. These are the eggs that you buy at the store that are raised in mass production. Now, it might be because it contains the yolk of the egg. It's really the yolk that contains something called choline. And choline may increase the risk of cancer progression. So this gets a 1 star, meaning they don't have enough solid evidence yet. But if you're a 3-egg omelet guy 7 days a week, maybe you start thinking about having something else for breakfast a few days a week. Because you want to hedge your bets. With all this, you want to hedge your bets. Just like you're hedging your bets with your active surveillance, you're hedging your bets by making these food choices. So the more you can think about that and be aware of it, it's important. There are some other eggs that actually make liquid egg whites. Now some people hate egg whites, but you can actually just buy egg whites and make an omelet with egg whites and vegetables and stuff. Or you can do 1 egg, a whole egg, and then use some egg whites, or just have cereal or oatmeal or something else for breakfast. And then there's also pasture-raised eggs. So you can go to they're called happy eggs, and they're raised in a pasture. Like when I grew up on a farm, they're out there running around. Those eggs have more omega-3s in them, and they're a healthier egg. So if you really want to eat your eggs, you might want to think about that. There's always choices. You know, nutrition's about choices. Okay, calcium in dairy. That was your question about soy milk. So calcium in dairy is a pretty complicated discussion. We do know that calcium is important for good health, and dairy products are one of the best sources of calcium. But many studies have shown that drinking whole milk, the 4% kind, the high-fat kind, the saturated fat kind, may increase your risk of disease progression in men with non-metastatic prostate cancer. So, if you're drinking whole milk, the best thing is to go to a lower fat milk, like maybe a 1% milk, or even 2% milk. You want to get some of that dairy fat out of your diet because we know that that's saturated fat, just like the other discussion, and it may link to progression.
You didn't mention fat-free milk.
You can definitely do fat-free. Most men that I work with call it blue water, but you go there. Yeah. I do 1% milk because I grew up on cow's milk, like real cow's milk, like we milk the cow, and I just can't get to non-fat. There's actually a little bit of this good stuff in 1% milk, but yeah, you do what you do. Non-fat would be the very, very best. That would be the gold standard. Soy milk might even be better in the sense that it doesn't have any of the dairy in it, and we're not quite sure yet about it. But, you know, pick your battles. But I definitely would say no more than 3 servings of dairy products a day. So that would be milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, and cheese. I would really think, based on the evidence, that I wouldn't do more than 3 servings a day. So 1 cup of milk, or 1 cup of yogurt, or 1 ounce of cheese, which is like your finger. That's also been associated with an increased risk of a more aggressive prostate cancer.